Patient complains of double vision and dry mouth. He consumes a lot of canned food items. The most probable diagnosis is. Now here are three very important keywords which will help us to reach to the diagnosis here. So the options are botulism, tetanus, strychnine poisoning, organophosphate poisoning. So this seems to be quite a case of poisoning actually. And if we see, there's something called as Clostridium botulinum. Now this Clostridium botulinum is basically a motile member of Clostridium family. It is non-capsulated and it has subterminal spores and it is basically a strict anaerobe. Now these are certain features of C. botulinum. Now this botulinum on lysis generally release a toxin that is known as the botulinum toxin. Botulinum toxin. Now this particular toxin is basically a category A bioterrorism agent. Bioterrorism agent. It is interesting to remember and it can be asked as well. Then we have most potent toxin. It is the most potent toxin, and if we just see the minimum lethal dose of this particular toxin, it is as less as 1 to 2 nanogram per kg. That is why it is most potent toxin. It generally releases on the lysis of bacteria and it is not secreted by bacteria. So remember, it is released on the lysis of bacteria, and there are basically 9 antigen types. Okay, antigenic types are 9. Okay, and out of these A, B, C1, C2, D, E, F, G, H, right? C2 is going to be your enterotoxin. Now this H1, this H is actually newly added. So sometimes they can just ask which of the following is a newly added antigenic type of the botulinum toxin. So H is newly added. All others except C2 are neurotoxins. All others except C2, all these are going to be your neurotoxins. So these are certain very important features of this botulinum toxin. Now we should come to the context of this particular question actually. So there is something that is known as the food-borne botulinism. There is something that is called as food-borne botulism. Now the home preserved food and the industrialized canned foods, they contains preformed toxins, right? So what are the sources of this? The reason of this is the home preserved food, and this is going to be the most common cause. Okay, to our surprise, home preserved food is the most common cause of food-borne botulism. And then we have the industrialized canned food, and when we see this canned food, so we get one of the keywords which is given in our question also, right? So the patient was consuming a lot of canned food, right? So this particular thing generally contains preformed toxins, preformed botulinum toxins. Now this particular toxin actually, this toxin is actually heat labile. Incubation period of this particular toxin is 12 to 36 hours. And now we'll be discussing the clinical feature of the botulinism, or we can say the food-borne botulism. So what will be the clinical feature? The first and most common feature is going to be your nausea and thirst, and this is the initial clinical feature, and that shows you the action on ANS, right? And if you see this thirst, that means your dry mouth, right? That means your dry mouth, and this is the second keyword which was given in this particular question. Then the palsies of cranial nerves will come. Since action on ANS is there, then there will be palsies of cranial nerves, palsies of cranial nerves will be there, and due to those pulses there will be blurring of vision, or there can be diplopia, another very important keyword that is given in this question, and that will help you solving this particular question. Then there will be other cranial nerve effects, that is the dysphagia, dysarthria, then you have dilated pupil, flaccid paralysis, then there will be constipation. Generally, it is not associated with fever. No fever is going to be there. No sensory deficit will be there. No altered mentation, that means no CNS effect will be seen directly, no confusion will be there. Okay. Now, what is the reason of mortality in this? The mortality is due to the respiratory paralysis. This is due to respiratory paralysis, because palsies of certain cranial nerves occurs, and that can lead to paralysis, and the death is due to respiratory paralysis. So this was the whole gist of this particular question. Coming back to the question, yes, double vision due to the palsy of the cranial nerve, dry mouth because there will be certain effects, actions on the ANS that causes nausea and thirst, and then canned food items as well as home preserved foods are notorious for this because they contain preformed toxins. So answer to this question without any doubt is going to be your botulism, that is option first.